We are here on the floor, surrounded by stacks of books, because it's time for another book haul. Hi friends, I'm Alex and welcome to my booktube channel. I am really glad that you are here today to chat with me about all of the books that I have got in the last 2 months. We have almost 30 new books since the last time I did a book haul in December. So we've done a lot of book buying, we've been gifted some books for the holidays, and I want to tell you all about them. Maybe you'll find something new to add to your TBR. Maybe you can let me know if you've read them, what you thought about them. Most of these I have not read, although some of them I have. In the timeline, I will section it off by genre so that if there is a specific genre you're more interested in hearing about, you can jump ahead to it there. Although we are pretty YA fantasy heavy and adult fantasy heavy, we do have a few miscellaneous books that I will put at the end in various different genres, but this is a big fantasy haul and I'm so excited. So many great new books to add to the TBR. What are you gonna do? Can't stop buying books. I love them too much. We do have quite a few books to talk about today, so get comfortable and let's get into this book haul. Starting off with our YA fantasy. Got a stack here and some more down in front that you can't see. Let's start off. First up is A Wilderness of Stars by Shay Earnshaw. This is a young adult fantasy with a little bit of sci-fi elements in it. I have read this one. It was a Christmas gift from my mom, so thanks, Mom. And if you are a fan of Shay Earnshaw's writing, this is a little bit different for her, and the synopsis is very vague on purpose. I will let you know that. This is one that you should go into pretty blind. If you do want to hear my more in-depth thoughts on it, I did do a reading vlog as I read this, so I will link that for you if you are interested in my thoughts. Next up, we have the Sunbearer Trials by Aiden Thomas. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, which I think is really beautiful. This is a young adult fantasy with some trials, which I'm really excited about, and I believe that we have Latinx characters as well as mythology in this one. It sounds very intriguing, and I can't wait to get into it because I have heard the best reviews from all of my friends who have read this. I've not heard anyone who didn't enjoy this book, so very much looking forward to getting into this one. I also picked up The Liar's Crown by Abigail Owen. This is one that I have already read, but it's going to be a series and I really enjoyed the first book, so I wanted to own it so I can continue on with the series and buy the subsequent books and have them all on my shelf. I talked about this one in my young adult fantasies that are underrated video, and I definitely think that this book deserves more hype. It is a twin princesses story, and I really enjoyed the twist, the take in this book. I think it's a lot of fun and definitely recommend. Next up is a book that I picked up knowing pretty much nothing about it, which is not something that I do very often, but I was at the Barnes & Noble half-off hardcover sale and this one just kind of jumped out at me from the shelves, so picked it up on a whim and hopefully I enjoy it. This is Of Cages and Crowns by Brianna Joy Crump. This one is kind of compared to the Hunger Games and the Selection, I believe. I could be completely mistaken on that. I really don't remember. The synopsis sounded interesting to me and I do plan to go into it pretty blind when I read it, but I am always looking for those underrated, kind of under the radar fantasy novels to share with you guys, and this one sounded like promising, so I will let you know once I read it what I think about it. And if you have read this one, let me know because I've heard pretty much nothing about it. I also picked up Morgan by Mary E. Pearson. This is the illustrated version of the prequel to the Remnant Chronicles trilogy, which I absolutely adore, so I'm so excited to get into this. It has these really lovely illustrations throughout it, which I think are so fun. Obviously, the cover is stunning, and this is a world that I adore, so I'm really excited to read the prequel story, and Mary E. Pearson is just a wonderful author, so I am sure that this is going to be a huge win for me. Next up, we have the signed Barnes & Noble edition of The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber, which I feel super lucky to have found this edition because I'm a little bit late to the game on this series, and I actually was able to get this at the Barnes & Noble 50% off sale for only $10, which this edition is hard to find these days, so I'm really happy that I was able to do that, and I have already read this. I really enjoyed it. I'm very much looking forward to the third one and already have the Barnes & Noble edition pre-ordered. These are a spin-off series of the Caraval trilogy, and they're just such a whimsical, fun fantasy world. Such a perfect YA read. Next up is a YA fantasy debut that I pre-ordered and it came out in January. This is A Ruinous Fate by Kaylee Smith, and I have also already read this one. So wow, I'm actually doing pretty well on these books that I'm hauling. We'll see as we get into later books. But this is a witchy YA fantasy debut in a really beautiful and vast fantasy world that I really enjoyed diving into. I talked about this one in my January wrap-up if you'd like to hear a little bit more of my thoughts on it, but I do think that this has some room for growth. This author is brand new and I really see potential in where they're going in their career. I do plan to continue with this series as it progresses. Next up, we are getting into a very large series, which I have bought a lot of books from recently. You may have heard me talk about this author if you've watched any of my recent videos, and that is Cassandra Clare and the Shadowhunter Chronicles. I have purchased 9 Shadowhunter books in the last 2 months. Oops. You guys, I'm fully obsessed. So if you've heard me talk about this, I read the Mortal Instruments and the Infernal Devices in high school when they were first coming out. I was a huge fan. I would get them like as they came out and read them. And I fell in love especially with the Infernal Devices. However, I didn't purchase the physical copies of Clockwork Prince and Clockwork Princess because it was right around the time I got my first Kindle. So I own digital copies of these, but I really wanted to have physical ones for my shelf because I recently reread them and fell back in love with the Shadowhunters universe. So to go with my physical copy of Clockwork Angel that I already owned, I did pick up used on Pango Clockwork Prince and Clockwork Princess. I have reread them recently via audiobook. They are honestly still just as good as I thought they were in high school, which not all books stand that test. So way to go, Cassandra Clare. And obviously it started an addiction because I have 7 more Cassandra Clare books to show you in this haul. So after reading The Infernal Devices, of course, I was going to pick up The Last Hours, which is the series that follows the children of our favorite characters from The Infernal Devices. So I picked up Chain of Gold, Chain of Iron, and Chain of Thorns. Here we have them all together. They are beautiful. I am in love with these books, especially because they have artwork inside of them, which is so cool. I have subsequently read all 3 of these, and if I've not talked about them in videos that are out yet, I will be talking about them in the future. I have completed this entire trilogy. Cassandra Clare absolutely hooked me, and I've already read 6 books by her this year, and I definitely plan to read more. I am fully immersed and back in the Shadowhunters world. However, I am really sad to be done with the London-based Shadowhunters series because I have completed now The Infernal Devices and The Last Hours. But Chain of Gold has this gorgeous character artwork in the front, which is beautiful. It's just the standard edition. I have the collector's first edition of Chain of Iron, which has these gorgeous character like silhouette artwork throughout it. I love it. And then the first edition of Chain of Thorns has a beautiful reversible dust jacket with another main character on it, as well as some absolutely incredible interior artwork. I tried to find one that's like the least spoilery because obviously don't want to spoil anything, but this artwork is stunning. It really enhanced the reading experience of this book. So really, really cool that those books have those features. Next up, we have another complete Cassandra Clare trilogy, which is The Dark Artifices. Now, I am planning to reread The Mortal Instruments. I own the first 3 books in physical copies and the rest of it on Kindle, and I don't know that I'm gonna buy hardcovers of those because they're not my favorites, but I am going to reread them because I was convinced that I should read The Dark Artifices. I was not planning to do so, but a friend convinced me. She told me the tropes, she told me things I would love about it, and I'm hooked. I'm gonna read them. So I bought Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows used on PANGOBOOKS with my Infernal Devices books that I bought. So I got a good deal on those. And then Queen of Air and Darkness I was able to get for pretty cheap from Target. So now I've got this whole set. Oh my gosh, these books are ginormous, but I do hope to read them pretty soon because again, I'm just absolutely sucked into this world right now. And the last Shadowhunter book, last Cassandra Clare, last YA fantasy book that I have to tell you about is Ghost of the Shadow Market. This one is a collection of short stories based around a character that I really, really love, Brother Zachariah, so I had to get it. I think that I need to wait until after I read a lot of the main series to read this because I'm concerned it might be a little spoilery, but very, very much looking forward to this one as well. I'm not usually a short stories collection type of person, but because this is in this world that I love based on a character that I already know and love, I think that that is pretty different and I think that I will really enjoy it. Switching gears, we are now on to adult fantasy. So I've got stack over here to dive into. Starting off with the Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. This was another Christmas present from a booktube friend, so thank you so much, Joanna. I have already read this book and enjoy it a lot. I'm a big dark academia fan, so this is obviously a perfect one for me. And it also came from one of our favorite local bookstores, which gives out arcs sometimes with purchases. So I also got an arc of The Cloisters by Katie Hayes, another dark academia adult book, which sounds very interesting to me. I'm not actually totally sure if it falls into the fantasy category, but I think it does, so I put it in here. Next up, we have a book that I picked up used, and that is Shadow of Night by Deborah Harkness, the second book in the All Souls trilogy, which I actually own the first and third books of. So I was happy to find a used copy of the second one to add to my collection to complete that trilogy. These are, I think, vampire stories with maybe some other creatures as well. I've heard them compared to like an adult version of Twilight. I'm not sure, that's what I've heard. They sound really interesting. I've not picked them up yet, but because I was able to get them all used and pretty cheap and I've heard good things, why not add these to the collection? Another adult fantasy series for the TBR. Next up, we have another one of those ones that I picked up randomly off the shelf at the Barnes & Noble half off sale, and it just really caught my eye, sounded interesting. This is Ledge by Stacey McEwen. My husband actually was really intrigued by this one when I got home, and he immediately started reading it, and so he's already read it. I'm not totally sure. I believe it's kind of Nordic-inspired fantasy, and it sounded just very intriguing. Also, this cover is just stunning. So it really caught my eye, and I brought it home and he read it already. Hopefully I will get to it soon. It obviously looks a little bit wintry, and with those Nordic vibes, I think it would be a great winter read. Of course, I had to pick up A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross, the sequel to my favorite book, A River Enchanted, which this is also a new favorite. I have talked your ears off about this duology. If you've not read it, what are you doing? Turn off this video and go read it. These books are so, so, so good. One of my absolute favorites, and Rebecca Ross is just an absolute auto-buy author for me from now on. Her writing is lyrical and poetic and beautiful, and A Fire Endless and A River Enchanted are just my favorite duology. They're my favorite books right now, and I'm fully obsessed. Also, gorgeous. Next, we have the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition of Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. This is the sequel to Ninth House, which is Leigh Bardugo's adult fantasy debut with dark academia vibes, and it's kind of set in a modern world at Yale. We follow a character who is pulled into these occult societies from a very dark background, so definitely check trigger warnings on this series. It is very dark, but I really enjoy it. I really enjoy dark academia, and I am actually currently reading Hellbent, so watch out for my future wrap-ups. You will hear my thoughts on this one. Also, she's got some fun end paper artwork as well. Next up, we have an adult fantasy that everyone needs to read. I think every fantasy reader probably owns this book or has heard of it. The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I felt like I desperately needed to read this if I'm going to call myself a fantasy reader. This is one of those very popular epic fantasy series that are just everywhere, and I definitely wanted to jump on that bandwagon. I have heard the best things about this. I have personal friends, Bookstagram friends, Booktube friends. Everyone that I've heard of who's read this has absolutely adored it. I did get the large US paperback version because look at this. Look at how floppy this book is. It's amazing. I debated forever what edition of this book I wanted to get because the hardcovers are beautiful, but it's just so long and these paperbacks can't be beat. I just love it. So very excited to read this. I'm hoping to do so in 2023, but it is a bit of a monster, so we'll see if that happens. Wish me luck. And the very last adult fantasy book that I'm going to show to you is the most recent Illumicrate book. So if you don't want to be spoiled on what this book looks like, I think everyone for the most part has gotten their boxes, but if you don't want to be spoiled, just jump ahead to the next chapter so that you don't see this book. Okay, This book is God Killer by Hannah Kaner, and we've got the Illumicrate edition, so it's got a different colorway. It's got gorgeous digitally sprayed edges, and then colored edges on the top and bottom, foiled end papers. Oh, there's the author letter. It's also signed, and we have hardcover artwork. This book has it all. It's gorgeous, and this is kind of another Norse-inspired adult fantasy, which I just think that's kind of a vibe that my husband really enjoys, and I like to find books that we can both read and chat about, so this one sounds great for those purposes. It is about our main character who slays gods because they were harmed by zealots, I believe, of a god, and they're angry about it. And they're slaying gods until they find a god that they cannot kill and end up on some sort of a quest. It sounds very interesting. I've heard pretty good things about it, so we'll see what I think of when I get to it. We are nearing the end here. I have one single romance book to tell you about, and that is Angelica Frankenstein Makes Her Match by Sally Thorne. This is one that I picked up at Target for $4. I have never seen a book on clearance. I have to figure out how to get these freaking stickers off because gross, but I'm nervous about ruining the cover. Anyways, besides the point. This is a like fantasy-esque romance, so that's why I picked it up. You guys know, if you've been on my channel at all, that I am not a huge romance reader, but I do enjoy when it has a fantasy element to kind of draw in those things that I do enjoy reading and help get me acquainted with the romance genre. So I think this one is going to be pretty interesting. I believe it's about a woman who is having trouble finding a proper husband match in society and decides to make one instead, Frankenstein style. So, sounds pretty interesting. I'm looking forward to picking this one up probably in the fall. Then we have a literary fiction, magical realism type of story, and that is Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. This is also the Barnes & Noble edition. I just thought the white was beautiful with this foiling and the blue. This is about an apartment full of people and some slightly magical occurrences that happen in this apartment. I've heard really wonderful things about this author's work. I believe I ended up finding this one when I was looking for something that reminded me of Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. I could be totally wrong because I've not read this, but I believe that's why I ended up picking this one up, and obviously this edition is beautiful and it sounds really, really good. I am trying to get more into the adult genre in general out of YA, although obviously this haul had a lot of YA in it, but this was one that sounded really interesting to me. Now, those are all the new novels that I have picked up. I have two other things I want to tell you about in this video. If you're interested, I have a nonfiction workbook by Adrienne Young and Isabel Ibanez, and that is the Storyteller's Workbook. I am really interested in writing. I have always wanted to write and just have gotten really out of practice. So when they came out with this workbook by one of my favorite authors, I thought it would be really fun to pick up and try. And my mother-in-law gave it to me for Christmas, so thank you so much. I'm really excited to use this. Have I used it yet? No, but I really need to. I really want to get back into writing, and I think that this will be a great tool to use to do so. It's also just really aesthetic and beautiful on the inside. I don't know what that is, but it's gorgeous. Is like another one of the pages. They're just really lovely. Oh, I'm really happy to have this as well. And the last thing I want to tell you about in this video is something that my husband got me for Christmas, and that is my very own book stamp. I'm so excited about this. It just says "From the Library of Alex," and it's so cute. It's floral. I will show you it in one of my books. I just wanted to talk about this. That's the reason why it's in this haul. That is what it looks like in my book. I just think it's so cute, and I'm definitely going to be using that a lot. I plan to do a shelf reorganization soon, and maybe I will start putting it in some of the books that I'm very sure I'm going to keep. Obviously, ones that I'm going to unhaul, I don't want to put that in, but I think it's so cute, and it was so sweet of him to get me that for Christmas. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for this haul. I know we went pretty quickly, but we had a lot of books to get through, so thank you for sticking around for it. Let me know down in the comments what's something that you've bought recently, or if you're interested in any of these books and want to chat about them, let me know. I would love to chat with you and get to know you. Thank you so much for watching this video, supporting my channel, subscribing if you are a subscriber. It means so much to me. I recently hit 250 subscribers, so thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you guys. It is so fun being here and doing this and chatting with you all. So I hope that you are having a wonderful day, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye, friends.